What is up everyone, welcome back to Kayakers Kitchen, Eating Made Easy. This week we are back with another recipe from my absolute favorite cookbook in the world, Thug Kitchen, Eat Like You Give a This week I'm gonna make one of the easiest dinner dishes, one of my favorite dinner dishes in there. Peanuts, tempeh noodles with blanched kale. It sounds really fancy, it's super easy to make, it requires very few ingredients, very few tools, very little cooking time. Delicious, it's a really good dinner and it tastes really good the next day too for like leftovers or breakfast if you're a savage. But really good as like, cold salad type, Anyway, what you're gonna need tools wise, pretty much just a big saucepan, like a kind of really big one, like bigger than the biggest one you have, and then a frying pan. Obviously you'll need a sharp knife because we can do a little bit of cutting. You'll need a garlic mincer. I'm going to use this little crank chop device, which is pretty useful. And then ingredients wise, I've just got a bag of kale. You could have some like regular kale and just take the stalks off it. A block of tempeh. This is like basically a fermented soybean. It's got like a pretty chunky, like tender texture almost. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like different to how tofu is, like kind of soft. It's more like firm and rugged. Rice noodles. You could use any other kind of noodle if you wanted, but I think rice noodles taste the best. And then for the sauce, we're gonna need some sesame oil. This can be tricky to track down, but keep an eye on the world foods aisle or the like Asian foods aisle if your grocery store has that. Some rice vinegar, some peanut butter. Make sure you're buying peanut butter that only has peanuts in it. There's a lot of other peanut butter out there on the market that's like a lot of sugar and oil and gnarly stuff. It's like not good for your inside, so look out for that. This is crunchy. I think it goes better with smooth, but this is what they had on the shelf this week. I couldn't get smooth, so crunchy. Some soy sauce, some lime juice, some maple syrup, all right? None of that corn syrup or like table syrup. It's got to come from the maple tree, otherwise. Some ginger, some garlic, and that's it. And that's all you're gonna need. It's super duper easy. If you're following the recipe, it says make the sauce first, but I'm gonna say put your pot of water on to boil first, because that's what kind of takes the longest. So we're gonna move probably over to the stove and yeah, hit it. So while our water's heating up, we are gonna start making our sauce. Grab a big plastic cup, grab your measuring spoons, grab a 1/4 cup measure. We're gonna do 1/2 cup of peanut butter. You might have to dig down there right to the bottom to get the thick stuff, not separate from the oil. Get that in the cup. Once you've got it all in there, try and make sure you get as much as you can off of that measuring cup. And if you have any left on the spoon, then you can just, perks of being the chef, you just get to taste a little bit of that. Fun fact about natural peanut butter, it actually goes a lot better in the fridge if you store it upside down. It kind of gets that oil to go to the bottom. 1/2 cup of warm water, 1/4 cup of rice vinegar. So these are super easy to measure with that 1/4 cup measuring thingamabob. A couple teaspoons of sesame oil, a couple teaspoons of lime juice. Pretty easy so far, pretty straightforward. A couple more teaspoons of soy sauce, still pretty straightforward. 1 teaspoon of maple syrup, and finally a teaspoon of hot sauce. I am actually gonna just say with the measure on this one because I want mine to be a bit spicier, but if you're not into spicy stuff, maybe just 1 teaspoon. Grab yourself a fork, give it a good mix. You really want to get down to the bottom, make sure that peanut butter is broken up and not a big lump. Next, grab your crank chop. This thing is so great, like you pull the rope cord on the top and that turns those blades, gives you like kind of a mechanical advantage on cutting stuff. It's really great for garlic and ginger and stuff. Like look at this thing. That is gonna mess some ginger and garlic up. Oh, can't wait. Okay, grab 3 pieces of garlic, throw them in the crank chop. Grab your ginger, cut the outsides of it off. You don't want to eat the skin part, just the yellow fleshy part. Cut that into kind of similar sized pieces to your garlic and throw it in the crank chop. If you throw it in there just like that one big bit, the blades probably won't turn. It's like not, it's not too good for really big stuff, so you want to make it more manageable for the device. Let's just drop it down a little bit so you can see this better. How did peanut butter even get on there? Oh well, I get to eat it anyway. Crank that a bunch of times. I'm gonna go for like, I don't know, 15 pulls maybe until it's nice and finely minced up. Oh yeah, look at that. That is looking good. As you can see, nice and fine. That's gonna go really great. Later on, we're gonna need that. So put that off to one side and kind of prepped and ready to go and pre-scraped out. Put your pan on the heat, on the stove. Fairly warm. I'm just gonna let it warm up without any oil. Quick check on the water, still there. Grab your tempeh. I'm gonna bust this up just by hand here. You don't need to do any cutting or anything crazy. You wanna have it in kind of thumb-sized pieces to start with. It's gonna break down a bit as you cook it, so don't go too crazy on trying to get in small pieces right away, because it's gonna get itself there. Grab your rice noodles, read the packaging very carefully. It varies from packet to packet, and then probably just ignore that and throw it straight in the boiling water. Leave it uncovered. Turn your tempeh occasionally, don't play with it too much, but don't let it burn either. Just find a happy middle ground there where you're not busting it to death. Test your rice noodles occasionally. Once it feels like it's got a couple of minutes to go, it's kind of like a bit crunchy, but most of the way done. That means it's ready to blanch our kale in. Blanch is actually just a really fancy word that means cooked kale or lightly cooked kale. The recipe says 6 cups. I'm just slamming this whole bag in there, I don't care. I've had a beer, I can do what I want. Make sure all your kale is covered by the water and then leave that for those last couple of minutes for the noodles to cook. While you're leaving it, we're gonna throw the garlic and ginger onto the tempeh. Just make sure you get all of it out of the crank chop. We're gonna also put a little bit of rice vinegar and soy sauce on there. The recipe does say to measure out what you put in, but I don't care anymore, I'm over it. So I'm just gonna throw those in, mix it all around, make sure the tempeh is all covered in the rice vinegar and the soy sauce and the ginger and the garlic. And that should be enough time now that the noodles are done. The kale should be done. So we're gonna take that off the stove, empty it into the sink, run some cold water over it to stop the cooking process and keep the kale nice and green. Empty that cold water out, and now we are time for the fun stuff to mix it all together. Use a spatula to get any lingering bits of tempeh out of the frying pan. And then put about half of the sauce onto the mixture. Start to mix it around. Probably about 5 seconds into mixing, you'll realize that the spatula is totally the wrong device for this. Go find yourself a fork, which is going to be a lot more efficient at getting that sauce more evenly distributed between the noodles, the tempeh, and the kale. Try not to make as much of a mess as I do. The recipe says keep the rest of the sauce for leftovers, but I'm always just like, nah, slam it in there. Get it all good and mixed up and covered, and we are almost ready to eat this little bad boy. Leave the lid on it, just off the heat for a couple of minutes, let the steam work around there so the noodles get nice and covered. If you've got some, top with some green onions. It makes a really nice addition and just gives a nice little extra flavor to it. Finally chop those little bad boys up once you've cut the ends off. And the final touch I'm going to add here is a little bit more sriracha because I want it to be a little bit spicier, but not crazy. Oof, look at that. Oh, I'm so hungry. Hungry just looking at that. Okay, so there you go. One of my absolute favorite dinner specials. Super easy to cook, looks delicious, sounds fancy. What more could you want? All right, I will see you next time for another edition of Kayakers Kitchen, or next Monday, whichever comes first. Peace.